Taxpayers could be getting an early Christmas present in the form of 2011 and 2012 tax cuts, or at least the extension of existing tax cuts. But as we have been discussing, there are some very tough decisions to be made about reducing the deficit and ultimately the debt. Deficit hawks warn that the cost of doing nothing or even doing what the president and Republicans have compromised on may be another financial crisis, maybe bigger than one that any of us have ever seen. One person concerned about the deficit is Sheila Bair. You'll know her as the chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, but also because she is someone who has been selectively vocal about other issues beyond that of just banking in the United States, and we appreciate that, Sheila. You're not like some in Washington, always talking about stuff. So when you talk, people listen. Let's talk about the deficit, a little bit outside of your purview, but you are concerned that we really should have started working on this deficit now.
Yes, we really do need to get a plan, a credible plan in place, I think, in this Congress. It can be phased in over the next several years, but I think it's important for the international community and particularly the investor community to understand that we do have a sound path to fiscal responsibility. We don't have that right now.
It is my sense that Americans would embrace a tough path if they knew where it led. Right now we have a lot of rhetoric out there. We have people saying that this deficit we're passing it on to our grandchildren, which I don't think means anything to most people, and others saying that you can't tackle the deficit during this economic time. Now, we've had these commissions, particularly the President's Commission, offering some hard choices to rein in our long-term deficit. Which of those hard choices do you think we need to very seriously consider embracing?
Well, I think it needs to be a credible plan. I think the Bowles-Simpson plan is a very credible plan, and I think it's a good example of how bipartisan agreement could be achieved. There are other plans. Incoming chairman, Budget Chairman Paul Ryan has a good plan. That might be more to the ideological preferences of some, but I think that's not really the question. The question is, where can we find common ground in the middle to actually approve a package? So I think it needs to be evenly distributed. It needs to be fair. It needs to be credible and real, not gimmickry. But I do think that the Deficit Commission, the recommendations are very credible and certainly ones that we could support. I think, but again, it's just important that this be dealt with in a meaningful way.
They're tackling.
It could have a
they're offering up, talking about reductions in mortgage interest deductibility. They're talking about Social Security, increasing the age at which you get that. I mean, they've sort of offered something for everyone to be angry about. Should we be really saying this is realistic? We need to move in this direction.
I think we should, and I think there are several areas where there's already good support. For instance, getting rid of all the special deductions and exemptions and credits in the tax code, trying to get rid of most of that and lowering everybody's rates and still picking up revenue in the process, I think would be tremendously beneficial to tax fairness and equity, simplicity, as well as long-term economic sustainability. So things like that, I think, have good bipartisan support already. Many of the changes in Social Security, I think even public polls are showing that people would support removing or raising the cap on the income that is subject to the FICA tax now. So I think there are a number of measures that already have good support, and hopefully they can put together a package that is at least within the $4 trillion over 10-year range, which is what Erskine Bowles does propose. But it needs to be done, and there could be real-world ramifications. It's not just this ideological debate about whether deficits matter. There could be real ramifications for interest rate costs, for consumers, for the government, for banks, if this isn't dealt with in a meaningful, credible way in the fairly short term.
One of the things that you gained a lot of acclaim for through the worst of the financial crisis is where we didn't think that everybody really had a handle on what was going on. You certainly had your finger on the pulse of banks in this country. So I assume that you and your colleagues have the best sense of what's going on in banks. Have you lost any sleep over Julian Assange and WikiLeaks talking about having enough information to bring down a bank or two?
Well, listen, I think it's always important for everybody to understand deposit insurance and understand that if you're fully insured at your bank, you have nothing to worry about. And we have a special website, myfdicinsurance.gov, that explains our rules. The basic rule is $250,000 per depositor per bank, but you can get more than that through structuring your accounts, and our website will help people walk through that. I think if you want to learn more about banks, there are reliable sources of information. Our website, our call reports have a lot of financial information about banks. There are credible analysts out there. So I would look for reliable information about the banking sector and understand that if you're below our deposit insurance limits, you're fully insured no matter what.
You think it's likely that there's information about banks that you don't know?
No, I don't. And I said this before. I can't imagine what could be out there that they think would have such a big impact. It sounds like it's old information, whatever it is. So, you know, I got to tell you, I just ignore that kind of thing. I think people are just trying to stir up trouble and scare people. That's not particularly constructive. And so I ignore it, and I would hope other people would do the same. Look for credible sources of information if you're interested.
Sheila Bair, always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for being with us.
Nice to talk to you,
Sheila
Valerie.
Bair is the chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC.